Hrothgar, king of the Danes, has built a wonderful mead hall called Harrowt, where his subjects, which are his men, congregate and make merry. They're having a good time. It's a party. As this selection opens, a fierce and powerful monster named Grendel invades the mead hall, bringing death and destruction. Grendel, a powerful monster living down in the darkness, growled in pain, impatient, as day after day the music rang loud in that hall, the harps rejoicing, call and the poet's clear song sung of the ancient beginnings of all of us, recalling the almighty making of the earth, shaping these beautiful plains marked off by oceans, then proudly setting the sun and moon to glow across the land and light it. So this is referring to God creating the earth and how beautiful it was, and everyone's just rejoicing about the beautiful earth that they're living on. The corners of the earth were made lovely with trees and leaves, made quick with life, with each of the nations who now move on its face. And then, as now, warriors sang of their pleasure. So Hrothgar's men lived happy in his hall, till the monster stirred. That demon, that fiend, Grendel, who haunted the moors, the wild marshes, and made his home in a hell. Not hell, but earth. He was spawned in that slime, conceived by a pair of those monsters born of Cain. Okay, so this is now referring to how Grendel was created and who created him. Murderous creatures who were banished by God, punished forever for the crime of Abel's death. This refers back to the story of Cain and Abel, the two very first sons of Adam and Eve. Abel was killed by Cain, and so Cain is now viewed as a very evil reference. Punished for the crime of Abel's death. The Almighty drove those demons out, and their exile was bitter. Shut away from men, they split into 1,000 forms of evil. Spirits and fiends, goblins, monsters, giants, a brood, forever opposing the Lord's will, and again defeated. So, he was a very evil monster created by very evil monsters. He comes from a dark place where they don't get to see humans very often. Then, when darkness had dropped, Grendel went up to Harrowt, wondering what the warriors would do in that hall when their drinking was done. He found them sprawled in sleep, suspecting nothing, their dreams undisturbed. The monster's thoughts were as quick as his greed or his claws. He slipped through the doors, and there, in the silence, snatched up 30 men, smashed them unknowing in their beds, and ran out with their bodies, the blood dripping behind him, back to his lair, delighted with his night's slaughter. So he snuck into their hall, where they were all sleeping, snatched up 30 men in one moment, picked up 30 men at one time. So this gives you an idea of how large Grendel must be in order to be able to pick up 30 men, smash them all at once, and run away with their bodies. And he was happy with what he took home to eat for dinner that night. At daybreak, when the sun's first light, they saw how well he had worked, and in that gray morning broke their long feast with tears and laments for the dead. Hrothgar, their lord, sat joyless in Harrowt, a mighty prince mourning the fates of his lost friends and companions, knowing by its tracks that some demon had torn his followers apart. He wept, fearing that the beginning might not be the end. And that night Grendel came again. So right there, Hrothgar had predicted that that wasn't going to be the last time that Grendel came and ate men from his house. And he was correct, because that very night he came again. Grendel came again so set on murder that no crime could ever be enough. No savage assault quench his lust for evil. Okay, so he came in wanting nothing but to kill. He wasn't leaving until he killed these men. Now you have to stop and think about what is making him so angry that he wants to kill. And you have to remember all these men were doing was having a party and celebrating Earth and their life on Earth. And that was enough to make Grendel snap and come kill everyone. So keep that in mind. Each warrior tried to escape him, searched for rest in different beds as far from Heorot as they could find, seeing how Grendel hunted when they slept. Distance was safety. The only survivors were those who fled him. Hate had triumphed. So the men had to begin to run away. They could not even sleep in their home anymore. They had to go live elsewhere, far, far away from Heorot, so that they would not die, because Grendel was winning at this point in time. So Grendel ruled, fought with the righteous, won against many, and won. So Heorot stood empty and stayed deserted for years. 12 winters. Okay, how many winters are in a year? Only one. So if you had 12 winters, that means 12 years. So the Mead Hall was deserted for 12 whole years. Of grief for Hrothgar, king of the Danes, sorrow heaped at his door by hell-forged hands. His misery leaped the seas and was told and sung in all men's ears, of how Grendel's hatred began, how the monster relished in his savage war on the Danes, keeping the bloody feud alive, seeking no peace, offering no truce, accepting no settlement, no price in gold or land, and paying the living for one crime only with another. So the story of what happened to Hrothgar and his men was told far across the earth, to other lands, across the seas, about how horrible Grendel was and what all he was doing, and the fact that he wasn't going to stop until every man was killed. So anybody that went in that hall, if it were up to Grendel, died. Let's see. No one waited for reparation from his plundering claws. That shadow of death hunted in the darkness, stalked Hrothgar's warriors, old and young, lying in waiting, hidden in mist, invisibly following them from the edge of the marsh, always there, unseen. So mankind's enemy continued his crimes, referring to Grendel, killing as often as he could, coming alone, bloodthirsty, and horrible. Though he lived in Heorot, when the night hid him, he never dared to touch King Hrothgar's glorious throne, protected by God, God whose love Grendel could not know. So at this point, Grendel is living in Heorot because everybody had evacuated because he was killing them. So he's living in Heorot, but he will not touch Hrothgar's throne because it is protected by God. So imagine that Grendel is the devil. The devil has no way to reach God, so that is what that is referring to. Hrothgar's heart was bent because the best and most noble of his council debated remedies, sat in secret sessions, talking of terror and wondering what the bravest of warriors could do. And sometimes they sacrificed to the old stone gods, made heathen vows, hoping for hell's support, the devil's guidance in driving their affliction off. Okay, so his men are supposed to be men of God who praise God and are Christians, but they're so taken back by the situation with Grendel after 12 years of nothing but death. They're looking for other ways because they're thinking that praying to God is just not working. So now they're praying to the devil for the devil's help to drive Grendel away, which in Hrothgar's eyes and God's eyes, that is just unacceptable. So that's why they're considered heathens, and that is why Hrothgar is extremely upset, and his heart is broken. It's bent because his men are not acting as they should. that their way and the heathens' only hope, hell always in their hearts, knowing neither God nor his passing as he walks through our world, the Lord of heaven and earth. Their ears could not hear his praise nor know his glory. Let them beware those who are thrust into danger, clutched at by trouble, yet can carry no solace in their hearts. I cannot bear to be better. Hail to those who will rise to God, drop off their dead bodies, and seek our Father's peace. And that is the end of Grendel's section.